Today, we're exploring a question that feels like it's moving from maybe theoretical discussion to something much closer to reality.
Hmm.
Are driverless taxis about to start operating right where you live?
Yeah, and the source material we're digging into for this dive is a really interesting recent article. It details Uber's specific plans to trial fully autonomous vehicles, and importantly, doing so in the UK.
Right.
It gives us some, concrete timelines and locations to work with.
Absolutely. So, our mission in this deep dive is really to unpack what this particular announcement tells us, understand how it fits into the broader picture of autonomous vehicle timelines,
Hmm.
and explore the potential impacts, both the exciting stuff and the concerns pulling only from the information presented in this one source.
Let's see what's coming down the road.
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's dig in. The article sets the stage quite well, I think. It starts by explaining that the UK government's approach and timeline for driverless cars, well, it hasn't exactly been fixed. It's actually shifted a couple of times.
Right, I saw that. It mentions an earlier target date for the tech to be, commercially available around 2026 originally.
Yeah, that was the initial target mentioned, but then things shifted a bit. The date was apparently pushed back kind of towards the second half of 2027.
Okay.
But here's where the source highlights a really key change, and honestly, where it gets quite interesting. The government is now apparently introducing a new accelerated framework.
A new framework.
Yeah, think of it like a specific set of rules, processes, maybe designed to fast track certain things.
Mm.
And this framework, it's specifically for smaller autonomous. The source calls them bus and taxi like commercial services.
Okay.
And this allows them to potentially get started earlier than that later 2027 date.
So this new framework is the sort of the legislative catalyst here.
Exactly. That seems to be the trigger. And that brings us right to the main news the article is covering. Uber is apparently bringing forward its plans specifically because of this new framework.
And the source is pretty specific about the details of Uber's trial, isn't it? It's going to happen in London.
Yes, London's the location. And the timeline, the article points to next spring, which, based on the source's date, puts us in spring 2026.
Wow. Okay. So not far off at all.
Not far off. And Uber isn't doing this alone. They're partnering with a UK artificial intelligence firm called Wayve.
Wave, right. The source notes they've already been testing their tech in London for a while.
They have, yeah. But, and this is crucial, previously that testing always included a human safety driver in the vehicle, someone ready to take over. That was required under the older rules.
Okay, so what's different now?
Well, this is a really significant detail the article emphasizes about this upcoming trial. These Uber vehicles will be truly autonomous cars with no human safety driver physically at the wheel.
Not at all.
None at all. This is the transition to actual robotaxis being trialed on the road.
That really is the crucial difference, the source points out. Now, the article also mentions it's not totally clear yet if these specific trial vehicles will actually be available for, regular customers to just hail right away.
Yeah, that seems like a detail still being worked out, according to the source.
Right.
But the clear intention stated is that Uber does plan to add these robotaxis as a regular option within its UK app eventually.
Once the full legislation allows it, presumably.
Right, once everything's formally in place.
Okay, so that covers the UK specific plan tied to this new framework. But the source also gives us some pretty vital global context, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Showing this isn't just happening in isolation.
absolutely. What's really striking, I think, is that Uber already has a robotaxi service up and running elsewhere.
In Austin, Texas, right? The article mentions that launched back in March 2025.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And it gives us a bit of a glimpse into how that Austin service works. Apparently, the vehicles are designed to work pretty intensively, up to 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. And for customers there, if a robotaxi is available when they book through the app, they apparently have the option to choose it.
And the cost.
No difference in fare, according to the source. Same price as a regular Uber.
Interesting. The source even notes there's competition brewing there already. Tesla's apparently planning its own rival service in Austin, starting in June 2025.
Yeah, so Austin's becoming a bit of a test bed. And pulling back even further, the article reminds us that fully driverless cars have actually logged millions of miles on public roads already in other parts of the world. It lists places like China, the UAE, Singapore.
So it's definitely a global phenomenon.
It really is. So when you look at the UK plan alongside these global examples, it becomes clear this isn't just a speculative idea anymore. It's a technology that's moving into real world deployment, just, helped along by different rules in different places.
And with a shift this big, there are bound to be questions about the wider impacts, right? on society, the economy. The source touches on both sides of that.
It does, yeah. It cites the Department for Transport's view on the potential economic upside. They're projecting this industry could create a significant number of jobs, 38,000,
38,000 jobs.
and add around 42 billion to the UK economy by 2035. So, pretty substantial potential boost being forecast there.
But, well, the obvious counterpoint is what happens to the jobs currently held by human drivers, isn't it?
Exactly. And the source presents that counterpoint. It mentions the GMB National Secretary, Andy Prendergast, who raised concerns about what he called the significant social implications,
Specifically mentioning unemployment for drivers.
specifically highlighting the potential negative impact on employment levels. Yeah.
And the source seems careful to just present both views, right? The potential growth versus the job concerns.
Yeah, it lays them out pretty impartially. The government forecast on one side, the union representative's specific concern about job displacement on the other.
Okay. Now, probably one of the biggest questions on everyone's mind is safety. How safe are these things? The article tackles that directly.
It does. It states pretty clearly that whether robotaxis are ultimately more or less safe than human driven cars is, well, it's still being investigated. There isn't a final verdict yet.
But it does mention some studies.
It does share findings from numerous studies, based on US data mostly, which seem to suggest that automated vehicles, statistically speaking, are less accident prone than human drivers, based on miles driven.
Okay, statistically fewer accidents per mile.
Right. But, and this is important, that doesn't mean there haven't been problems. The article balances those study findings by acknowledging the reality of incidents that have happened with robotaxis where they're already operating.
What kind of incidents?
It mentions a range, really, from
Right.
actual road accidents to some more unusual situations, like passengers apparently getting locked inside the vehicle.
Locked inside. Okay, that's odd.
Yeah, and it includes a specific negative example from the source. A robotaxi service in San Francisco that was actually shut down entirely after experiencing a series of malfunctions.
Right, I remember hearing about that one.
So, while the long term data might point towards potential safety benefits down the line, the technology is clearly still navigating real world challenges and, well, failures sometimes.
It makes sense. To make it a bit more tangible, the article even includes a first-hand account, which I found quite helpful, actually. It's from the BBC technology editor.
Ah, yes, describing their experience back in May 2025.
Exactly.
Yeah, the editor apparently took a ride in a car in central London, one fitted with Wave's autonomous kit. Now, importantly, the article notes there was a human safety driver present for that specific ride.
So, not fully driverless in that instance.
Not for that particular demo ride, no. But the striking detail, according to the editor's account in the source, is that the safety driver did not have to intervene, not once. They didn't use the controls at all during the whole 30-minute journey.
Wow. Across central London. That's pretty complex driving.
It is, and the article details what the car apparently handled successfully, according to the editor, navigating congestion, dealing with temporary traffic lights, interacting safely with cyclists, and even handling a situation with a pedestrian using crutches who was in the middle of the road.
It managed all that.
Apparently so. The source identifies the vehicle as a Ford McKee, kitted out with the usual suite of sensors, radar, and the AI system making the driving decisions.
And what was the editor's overall impression?
Well, their personal observation, according to the article, was that the car felt a lot more cautious than a human driver.
More cautious. Interesting.
Yeah, which led to a trip they described as reassuringly uneventful. Maybe not thrilling, but safe.
Right. Reassuring is probably what you want from a robotaxi. Okay, so weaving all these threads together, then the shifting UK rules, Uber's concrete plans for London, the global picture, the economy versus jobs debate, the safety data and incidents, and that firsthand account. What does this all ultimately mean for you, the listener?
Well, I think it really means this isn't some abstract, far off future tech anymore, is it? It's something with a clear timeline now, being planned for major cities like London, potentially starting trials without human drivers as early as next year.
Yeah, it feels much closer. It's about understanding how this technology is really poised to impact your daily life. Everything from how you might get around the city to the potential shifts in the job market, the whole landscape of road safety, and just how AI is integrating into really public, really critical infrastructure like transport.
It's about getting a clearer picture of what's literally coming down the road. This source gives you the details to understand the specific steps being taken now and the debates that are happening around them.
So, pulling back from our deep dive into this source, we've really covered the key points. And the UK's regulatory framework seems to be accelerating the timeline. Uber's specific plan for that truly driverless trial in London next spring with Wayve.
Yep. The fact that this is part of a global trend with services already live in places like Austin.
The contrasting views on the economic and job impacts, the ongoing investigation into their safety, backed by data, but also tempered by real world incidents.
And that interesting firsthand account from the BBC editor adding some color.
It really emphasizes that the move towards autonomous vehicles isn't just a long term concept anymore, doesn't it? Concrete driverless trials are actually being scheduled for next year in a major European capital.
It's happening.
And that brings us, I think, to a potentially provocative thought for you to consider as you go about your day. As this technology advances so rapidly, and as these robotaxis start moving from controlled tests onto our actual public streets, how do you think we as a society should navigate that really complex balance?
Hmm. The balance between the potential for significant economic growth and efficiency gains on one side.
And the very real social implications, like job displacement, on the other. And of course, the absolute non negotiable need to ensure public safety above all else.
It's a really nuanced challenge, isn't it? And one that this source shows is already knocking at the door, not waiting for the distant future.
Something to think about.